What would your wages be when you first started?
After you played your board money, you get 23 in Olympians. And then, if you were satisfactory after 6 months, you went through a medical and became superannuated. And they took one and tuppence off you, and you're down to 22 names.
So you get less money after 6
Yeah.
months. And you say you had to pay board. How much would you be paying in board?
It was equivalent to 26 shillings.
More than half your wages. Away. And did you feel that was good value?
No, it wasn't good value at all. To me, it was very, very poor. They never showed any imagination about your menu. I can remember it, and we're talking about 1937. I could tell you the breakfast. You just looked at me, wakened up in the morning and said, it's Monday, it's an egg, fried egg. Tuesday it was ham. Wednesday it was a kipper. Thursday it was a sausage. Friday it was an egg. Every day, never a change.
And where did you go to get that?
The place was up in the refectory, in the middle of the meal refectory.
Right.
There was a sitting room there and a dining room.
You said you were allowed a dance once
Once a week.
Right, were there strictures in that?
Well, you couldn't go up the road with them, you know what I mean?
But you were allowed freedom to dance as
Oh
much?
yes, under the supervision of the superintendent, his wife and the matron, the chief male nurse.
So you could do whatever you liked. But you weren't allowed to go beyond a certain
That's right.
place in the hospital?
The tea room.
Right.
Tea room. If you were courting a nurse, that was as far as you, the tea room, and that was the finish of it.
So the tea room would be where?
In the middle of the hill. Up from the hospital section.
But, was somebody watching?
Well, I had a man on the telephones at night. Part of his job was walking about there at the witching hour, 11 o'clock.
No bribes come his way?
Yeah.
But there would be presumably quite a few romances between
There was quite a number.
nurses.
Aye. Oh, aye. I mean, most of the staff that stayed in the Oval were married to nurses.
And yourself?
No. Then as Colin and I broke the mould.
Right.
We married local girls.
How did you meet your wife?
I can tell her dancing.
Right. And did she never work in the castle?
She worked after we were married. Aye, after we were married and a couple of boys. She worked up there for 28 years.
In the nursing
Nursing, aye.
side. What was the sort of the male nurses' relationship with the doctors? Did they have anything to do with them socially at all?
No, nothing at all. Frowned on, you know. I used to play tennis with one of them, the doctors. And that's why he said, I'd like to go for a drink with you, but it would be heard here before I get down.
So that'd be very uncommon.
Oh, aye. That was, I'm talking about before the war. Latterly, it was completely changed.
So why do you think that was? That would be frowned on.
Don't know, it's hard to put a reason on it, you know. Dr. Chislett, for example, he was the big shot, you know. And I think he looked into places as his state. I mean, he was very, very strict and very fair, he thought. But when I think back on it, he heard there was a male nurse started, it was a landscape gardener. So right away, he got him to do his garden. And 8 to 5, and 2 patients. I mean, and that was all for free. And his wife used to go down to the wall garden, walk in with her oval basket and cut all the flowers and everything else she wanted. You know. He thought it belonged to them. I mean, God Almighty.
Did you see much of him about the grounds?
No. He sometimes he paid an odd visit, but he drove through an old Armstrong Siddeley, and you had to salute him. He saluted you back. But if you didn't salute him, you were reported to the chief male nurse and told in future, salute him. There was no such thing as a domestic paid domestic. Patients cleaned everything. Like that.
Was it what kind of regime was it for them? Was it fairly hard, would you say?
No, they seemed to accept the fact this was their job, you know, what they had to do in the ward, for example. That was their job. Sometimes you could say, if you don't do it right, I'll put somebody else on. That was enough, you know, they wanted to keep their job.
Right.
But I never said anything about remuneration, you know. I thought it was a disgrace. They used to get 10 woodbine
Per
person.
per
week.
per
Per
week.
week.
That was their.
4 pence. Eh? Them that worked in the shops, they get double.
What happened if they didn't smoke?
I never thought in that.
Did-
There was no alternative.
Mm.
I think they sold them.
But presumably most of them would smoke.
Oh, they nearly every one of them.
And was there an extra ration of cigarettes on top of that, or
No.
no? That would be
There's
that.
cigarettes or pipe tobacco, one or the other.
Mhm.
The patients do all the work. There's no domestic staff, whatever. And that was a good thing in a way, because it gave the patient something to do. But after, well, I can't tell you the date. I think it was in the 60s. They started domestic staff. And, well, what did the patients do? Sat about, didn't know what to do.
Did that cause problems then?
Oh, God, it caused problems with, you know what they say, idle hands. But I mean, to me, it was silly to change it completely. I argued with them up there. I argued that they should pay the staff, pay the patients half the normal wage that employed somebody from outside. Give them half of it. And I said, you're getting away with a bargain even then, because they're doing more work than the normal person would do. And I said the same for all the boys that worked in the vans and everything else. They should have got a reasonable wage. They did eventually, after nationalisation. They got 10 shillings, some of them, you know. Maybe 5 shillings. But that was all.
Was there any sort of real abuses that you saw in your time there?
I mean, patients getting abused, physically, hammered.
Yeah, whatever, eh?
Well, I've seen them being struck, but it was only in self-defence. I mean, you're dealing with patients, normal big fellas, you know. But I never saw anything. I never saw anything really. A patient getting really treated badly, really badly. Because to begin with, the doctor came round every day. There wasn't any marks on him or that. He spoke to the doctor, you know.
What about patients fighting amongst themselves?
Well,
Could that be utilised?
yes. Sometimes they let them have a go with one another. It's the only way you get peace. When I was up, there was no such thing as the drugs that they used latterly. I mean, if a patient took an outburst, it was a case of just getting them down and putting them into bed. But latterly, it was drugs did it all for you. They just gave them some drugs and they were quiet.
Do you think it was better when there wasn't any?
No, I think it was better for the patients. I mean, they were quiet and docile, but it saved them getting in any trouble too, you know, fighting with other ones. Sometimes I'd be a bit fracas with them, you know, some of them fight with one another. Sometimes fight with the staff, you know. It's like everything else. If you get 82 together all the time, they must fall out.
So what sanctions would you be able to take?
The whole thing was always said, send for more staff. When he got them, nobody ever told us.
So did you actually have to end up fighting?
Fine, struggling with them, putting them into bed. That was how they put you to bed. And then they were on punishment for after that. They missed their woodbine. Get beer rations. And if they ran away, they came back and brought back, they would put them into a white moleskin suit. And they kept that on for maybe 3 months. That was to try and make sure they didn't run away again. I'll try and make sure.
And did they have a name for that regime?
Well, the only name they ever had was 5 o'clock treatment. When they got up, they went out and worked, and when they come in at 5 o'clock, they went to bed.
And were they putting a diet at all?
At the beginning, they were putting a diet. Bread and tea. I don't think they missed with their porridge.
And was it something that worked at all?
I don't think it worked at all. I mean, if they wanted to run away, they would run away. I mean, if they had enough intelligence, then you find that I'm not staying in here. I mean, they were mental defects, but I mean, they were the way they were looked after and treated, you think they were in convicts nearly, you know. I felt sorry for most of them, you know. Especially the kind of low grades. I mean, it's amazing how the high grade patients looked after the low grades and dressed them and fed them and everything else, you know. I mean, it was, and yet, I mean, they could do that the one day, and the next day they would fight with you, you know. But they were good with the low grades. They couldn't do much for themselves.
Was that a feature of most wards?
Yes. Staff could never have done it. Could never have fed them all.
But you didn't feel it was appropriate for some of the patients that were in there originally to be in Lennox Castle?
You mean the ones that were high grade?
Uh-huh.
Aye. I mean, I don't think they'd have been in there if it hadn't been their criminal record. And it was one way of putting them away inside.
But do you think it's feasible for some or even the majority of mentally handicapped people to live outside?
Well, I would say half of them could maybe make ends meet. But it's difficult because they were in an institution where everything was laid out for them, food-wise. I mean, they didn't cook or anything like that. So it's like starting over again with them. And after they've been in there a number of years, it's just routine. Of course, I had 17 years with the juvenile delinquents, you know. I had 17 years with them, and I thoroughly enjoyed every bit of that.
Were they very different to work with?
Oh, aye. They were. A lot of them should never have been in. Never been in. In fact, one of the doctors, Dr. Foles, she got 3 or 4 of them taken off the list.
We're talking to James Lappin this morning. You remember him coming into the castle?
I remember him coming from Larbert in 1938.
What kind of guy was he?
Just the same as he is now. Very same.
How would you describe him?
Oh, I would describe him this way. I wouldn't mind a ward full of patients like Jimmy Lappin. No bother at all. Do anything. Nice worker and everything. Just, it's a shame. At 86, you said he was, eh?
So do you think the likes of Jimmy could be?
Jimmy could have been out years ago.
There was never any problems with him at all, you said?
No.
Why do you think he ended up in there for 70 years, or, well, in the hospital system for 70 years?
See, but a lot of them had no parents. Not a lot of them, but quite a number of them had no parents. And sometimes the parents never bothered to visit them. We used to get visitors at Christmas or that, and then not see them for a year, you know.
Looking back over your own career and sort of life involved with the castle, how do you feel it's been a good life for you?
Oh, I enjoyed it.
If you could have changed anything at the time, what would you have changed?
Well, I think I'd have given them more freedom, you know.
Have you any regrets at all?
No, not really, no. No, I reckon I enjoyed my life out there.